Welcome to The Burn, Beyond Firestop. I'm your host, John Zalepka. This show is focused on life safety and code compliance in the built environment, putting me on a mission to find the most interesting people in this space and get their unique perspectives. Our hope is that our listening audience walks away with an understanding of how our guests and their companies contribute to the promotion of life safety of whatever is being built. Now, this show is brought to you by Specified Technologies, Inc., also known as STI Firestop. And since 1990, STI has been a leading global provider of innovative fire protective solutions that help stop the spread of fire, smoke, and hot gases. And our guest today is Mike Kerrison, the Global Fire Protection Application Engineering Manager at Unifrax, who, in case you didn't know, is a global specialty fibers company focused solutions that make the world and your business a greener, cleaner, and safer place. Mike, I think I just said global 3 times in 10 seconds, but welcome.
Yeah, you did. That's great. Thanks a lot, John. Happy to be here.
Awesome. So I guess let's start off with, how are things in Niagara Falls? Slowly I turn. Sorry, I couldn't help myself.
Yeah, you know what? They're good. They're good. I'm currently here sitting in my basement in Niagara Falls, where I've been for, 15 months or so. But yeah, things are all right, man. They're starting to open back up, and we're slowly returning to a sense of normalcy here. So it's all good.
Definitely want to get into the normalcy part of things, but I always want to start on a personal note. Doing my research for this episode, before we jump into the whole business of things, I found out that you're a little bit of a Buffalo Bills fan, which I guess makes sense since it's just a hop, skip, and jump over Grand Island. So I guess my first question is, tell me how it felt, say, between the years of 1990 and 1993. Start with Norwood, wide right. Take me through how Dallas Cowboys in general. No, I'm kidding. Listen, I'm a Vikings fan, so I understand losing 4 Super Bowls, but things are looking good these days for you. Stephon Diggs, you're welcome for that. But hey, how's being a Bills fan these days compared to some of those years I just mentioned?
It's good, man. So I was just a kid, that first year I was 10 years old. So I just remember my dad screaming at the TV. I was a little young. We were all watching it, but and then, however many years that was, everybody reminds me, and I try to forget 20-something years without a playoff game or whatever. So we got a lot of the crew returning from last year. We went nuts for the playoff games. It was unfortunate the way it went down, but it went down that way. But yeah, really looking forward to a good season this year.
So you grew up in the Buffalo, Niagara area?
Yeah, been here my whole life.
Awesome. Looks like you even went to school there. SUNY Buffalo, School of Engineering and Applied Sciences, mechanical engineering degree. How'd you get interested in engineering to begin with?
It's funny. I started out, I was going to community college and just kind of taking some courses, and I'd always been interested in math and stuff like that. And then I took a liking to some of the physics courses and stuff I was taking, so mechanics and things like that. And I remember the professor I had, her name was Usha Pandey. She said, well, most of you are going to be engineers. And I thought, I'll do that. No lie. It was that day. I'm like, that's what I'll do. So then I started looking into the program that UB had, and at the time, and they still do, they have a great program. So I transferred over there, and a couple of years later, boom.
I mean, it looks like out of school you went to work for Unifrax. So were they fortuitously based in the Buffalo area, or did you have an idea that you wanted to work there? Did everyone know about the company? Or tell me a little bit about that. I think you even interned there when you were in college.
Yeah, I did. So historically, Unifrax recruited a lot of ceramic engineers because they make ceramic fibers, so they're high temperature insulation producers. So they had recruited a lot of kids from Alfred State for ceramic, and I actually, the internship posted through a group that I was working with at UB, like a placement group, and it was in their automotive group. So doing like mechanical testing and things like that. And I'm like, hey, that sounds cool. So I landed the internship, and I worked there for about a year doing that. I did a summer co-op, and then they kept me on, and then a position opened up in our industrial thermal management at the time. So industrial products group for an application engineer. So I interviewed there, and here we are. 18 years later.
Wow.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I guess tell me or tell us a little bit about Unifrax. I mean, you mentioned the automotive and some of the thermal areas that you're involved in. I guess we can get to that, but maybe some of the roles or some of the things that you're not involved in and some of the things that you have been involved in over the years.
Yeah, sure. So we have a number of, and it's funny because people that know Unifrax from the passive fire protection side, they kind of know about some of the things we do there, but that's a while it's a strategic piece, it's a piece of our business. So we have other business units. We manufacture products. So part of that greener, cleaner, safer thing. We manufacture products for automotive catalytic converters. So support Matt for that. We serve the industrial markets. So steel mills, things like that. So high temperature products that are going to those kind of furnaces and things like that. Then we have specialty fibers division, filtration, things like that. Trying to think what else we do outside of fire protection. That kind of covers it. So we're a lot more broad than just the fire protection. Yeah. So.
Sure. So in the fire protection end of things, you've had a lot of different roles there over the years, I'm sure. What have you been involved in? Have you been involved in any of the testing, or what you been doing?
Sure. So when I started in our industrial group, I did an application engineering job there for a couple, 2-3 years. And then Sarah Brewer, who a lot of people know, she's been around for a few years. She approached me one time in the hallway and said, "Hey, we're creating an application engineering position in our fire protection group. Be interested?" I said, "Yeah, sure." So that was probably 15 years ago. So I slid over to that group. It was growing at the time, right? And so in that, I've had a lot of roles. I've been in that group ever since, and in doing things. I've done an application engineering job for a couple of years, and I went out in the field for a couple of years, then back in for product management for a couple of years, and then I've been doing this engineering manager role for a few years. So kind of some of the things I've been involved in over the years are exactly that, like the technical support, the fire testing, the certification management, and things like that. So we do a lot of cross-functional teams at Unifrax when we're developing products. So we tend to have someone from our group, and then we have some development engineers, and then people from the manufacturing sites, and so on. So a lot of that kind of stuff.
Cool. So yeah, I mean, being on the fire protection side of things, that's sort of where our worlds collide, right? Literally. Can you talk a little bit about how your Fire Wrap family of products helps protect some of the various grease and air duct applications that you see out there, and why it's so essential? There's
kind of two big categories when we talk about duct related things in a commercial space. So there's the grease ducts. So those are the ducts that are serving your commercial kitchen operation. So they're taking grease laden vapor out of the building. Those ducts are required to be in a fire resistance rated enclosure. So a product that we're manufacturing for that, it's called Fire Wrap Elite 1.5. It wraps around that duct system, 2 layers of it, and it provides the required 2-hour enclosure for that duct to take the grease laden vapor safely out of the building. So kind of the other side of the commercial duct operation would be what I would call all other duct types. So what you might call a life safety duct. So like a stairwell pressurization duct, or really any duct moving air throughout a building. Similar requirements exist in the code to protect those ducts. Really, you don't want those ducts to act as a conduit for spreading fire throughout a building. So it's a little less, it's a more indirect path to code compliance than it is for, say, a grease duct. So it's what's known as an alternative method. So it's a little less direct, but still we're providing a code compliant solution to protect those ducts.
So, I mean, we in Firestopping, we have systems and solutions. We tested third-party labs to meet like international fire standards, code requirements in commercial buildings. You do a lot of that same testing, correct?
Yeah, we do. So for us, it goes beyond just what happens when a duct goes through a wall or a floor. So while that's part of the testing requirement, just like it is for like a pipe or something like that in your world, it's more than that, because you're protecting that entire duct system. So for example, this grease duct that would maybe in a drywall shaft enclosure as it exits the building, instead of being in there, it's wrapped with our product. So there's testing that involves, where it goes through the floor wall, as well as demonstrating that product's going to contain a fire inside the duct and prevent an external fire from entering the duct. And then, like I said, using that duct as a conduit to spread fire throughout the building. So there's some slightly different standards out there for the duct systems, in addition to the standard that's used for through penetration fire stop. So there's a couple of them, ASTM E2336. That's the code recognized grease duct standard. And then there's another one that we've done a lot of work through the IFC group, which is ASTM E2816. So that's one specifically designed for air ducts. So the code, not to get too far in the weeds, but I talked about this alternate methods thing. The code doesn't tell you the code tells you what to do. The code says, separate the duct with a 2-hour enclosure or put a damper in it. So test your 2-hour enclosure to ASTM E119. So you can't test a duct to that. So we get to these what we call purpose-built standards, which is that ASTM E2816 standard that I talked about. So the IC, so I'm involved with that group as the duct committee chair there. So we've over the years done a lot of work with that standard and evolving the standard and creation of the standard to get it where it is today.
Awesome. Yeah, I want to jump into the IFC in a little bit. Let's stay on Unifrax right now. And some of the other products there. I mean, I know that they're noted for being leaders in low biopersistent fiber, LBP fiber, right? For the benefit of our listeners, can you discuss this a little bit and how it can, help?
Yeah. So, and I'm not we have a whole crew of health and safety folks, but I'll talk to it the best I can. Really, what that LBP means is with these fibers, they can become airborne, right? So any kind of fibrous blanket or fibrous material. So what the low biopersistence basically means is your body can eliminate those fibers so that they're not going to be trapped in your lungs over time, like some of the other fibers years ago. I won't mention any names of fibers, but so these are more of the user-friendly variety. So that's why they're utilized in a lot of our products they're installed in a commercial setting, right? So these people that are installing those products day in and day out, they're cutting them. They have a level of comfort with those fiber types that your body can eliminate them.
Yeah, I mean, I just wanted to give you guys a shout out for that because like I said, I'm doing my research here, and it looks like you guys are the leading edge for that kind of thing. So definitely advantageous for contractors to use your products on a job. And now let's jump back into the IFC. All right, that's where we met, right? In March of 2020. It was a crazy time, right? It was. I didn't even think that the conference was going to happen at the International Firestop Council. And tell me a little bit more about your work. You mentioned that you're the head of the duct committee. What else have you worked on over there with the IFC?
So I've been doing the duct committee role. So I've been participating in those meetings. I don't know, so probably 14, 15 years. I've been chairing that group, the duct committee. So I watched your podcast with Pat Deshay. He heads up our inspectors committee, right? So yeah. We have several committees in that organization, and we all kind of follow that same mission statement of the overall IFC group, right? So we're basically promoting life safety. So whether that's through codes and standards development, education, or whatever it needs to be, that's kind of what our group is doing. So within that group, we're working on things like I mentioned that standard for air duct and educating folks on that standard. And unfortunately, there's a lot of misinformation in the marketplace. So we try to write a lot of that information, get it on the straight and narrow. And so we publish white papers and things like that. So for example, we published one. I was last year, not long after our meeting. UL made some changes to how they list some of these fire-rated duct assemblies. So we published a white paper just kind of highlighting those changes and why they're important. So we do a lot of things like that, and then we get involved in the education side. We have a section in the in the training presentations and so on that the folks are doing across the country.
Awesome. And an interesting fact about Mike and the IFC, he may be the last person whose hand I shook in a business setting, accidentally, of course. It was, I think, at the end of our round of golf there. But like I said earlier, it is nice to see things opening back up, and I hope I get to see you in person sometime soon at one of these meetings. But so, Mike, the last portion of the show, we typically dedicate to anything that our guests like to promote as far as new products, any updated codes or standards to be aware of that are coming out, any book launches maybe. Anything at all, really. I mean, I know I've seen a lot of LinkedIn posts, but why don't you go ahead and tell us?
Yeah, sure. I'll take a second to make a plug here. So, in this whole COVID world thing, right? So I'll go ahead and say it. This is my first ever podcast appearance. So, but along with that, we started Unifrax, started taking on a lot of producing a lot of webinar type series, right? So just trying to remain connected with folks and just get in front of people when we can. So we actually kicked off a series for the built environment. That would have been late April. It was recorded. It's available. You could catch it on my LinkedIn or on the Unifrax site there. And it basically had to do with passive fire protection and our offering in the built environment. So kind of like a preview of the offering that we have for across a bunch of different levels, and it's going to kick off a series of an additional 3 webinars that we're going to put out. So one of them is going to be for for AIA, so continuing education. You get 1 HSW credit, and that one's going to be all about commercial exhaust duct systems, so some of the stuff we talked about. And then we'll have another, that'll be an hour. Then we'll have another one that's 30 minutes that's going to focus strictly on, so I mentioned the all other duct types, or these air ducts being alternates to code prescribed methods. So that we're going to do one specifically focused on that and kind of the ins and outs of code compliance. And then we'll have one more that's on dryer protection systems. So when you're kind of multifamily units, 3 stories or less, we have a product that protects the dryer vents as they exit the building in those spaces. So those are kind of to come this summer. So look out for those. There's my plug for those.
Awesome. Hey, and Mike, if you have any links, send them over to me. We'll put them in the show notes to make sure that people can follow you either on LinkedIn or wherever you want them to. This way they can click there and register for some of these upcoming webinars. I love that you guys are providing that training and just kind of giving back in that way. Awesome. Hey, any other trade shows that you have coming up? Some live things that maybe you're back business traveling, or not so much yet?
Business travel. You know what? The first trade show we have, as far as this world, is probably in Vegas in late January. It's the ASHRAE show, AHR. So it's kind of focused on this sort of thing, right? So all things kind of air movement, I guess it would be an okay way to describe that. So as far as getting back out there, you mentioned IFC, man. It's looking like we might have an in-person meeting in September in Annapolis. That's not that far for you.
No, that would be awesome. Looking forward to some of those things, for sure.
Yeah, for sure.
But, Mike, hey, great catching up with you and getting to know you a little bit better today, and appreciate your time.
Yeah, you too, John. Thanks a lot. I appreciate you having me on.
Awesome. And I want to thank you, our listening audience. We appreciate you taking the time to listen to this podcast. I sure hope you found some value today in our discussion with Mike. And be sure to check out the show notes for some links to some of the things that we talked about. And finally, if you did enjoy the episode, it's a great benefit to us if you could like it, review it, wherever you get your podcast from. This way, others would also benefit from this content. They can find it as well. So share it, recommend us, whatever you do. I don't know, comment on our social media posts, whatever you can do to help. Much love. Thank you. And to catch all the latest and greatest from STI, please visit our website, www.stifirestop.com. And until next time, this is The Burn.